Use News Now Sports as your all-access pass to all things Hawkeyes. This is Eye on the Hawks, sponsored by University of Iowa Healthcare.
Welcome back to Eye on the Hawks for the second time. Today, we're recording here in the studio with some discussion about where we're at with the basketball season as we hit the mid-January mark. Owen Sebring, Curtis Fader, Mike Howell, and Eye on the Hawks taking a new meaning today with we've got a Bird friend in our studio, and we'll see if they decide to make a cameo appearance on today's show. In the time being, let's talk about a basketball team that's flying high in the national rankings, up to number 2 in the country, sitting right behind South Carolina is Iowa, the women's basketball team. A couple of big benchmarks that we've seen from this team in the last week. Number 1, Caitlin Clark passes Brittany Griner for 4th on the all-time list. And she told the great anecdote about getting a chance to see Brittany Griner play in person at Wells Fargo Arena back in, what year did we say that was? 2012, I think it would have been.
Oh, when she was with Baylor?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Saw her in the Elite Eight, I think it was, Tennessee versus Baylor. Pat Summitt's final game as head coach for Tennessee. Incredible. I mean, again, a lineup that is, as Mike and I were talking about, the Mount Rushmore of women's basketball. In the same building on that day, you had Caitlin Clark, Brittany Griner, Kim Mulkey, and Pat Summitt all in the same arena in the state of Iowa. So it was fun to see her as she continues to climb the chart. She could be passing Kelsey Plum anytime in the next 8 to 9 games. I mean, there's speculation about when that could happen, but it would be
like 80 points behind third, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, something like that. 80 to 90.
Well, yeah, and also keep in mind when she passes number 2, that's Kelsey Mitchell. That could be her potential future teammate on the Indiana Fever. She was the 2nd overall pick in 2018.
Yeah, so that's true. And it'll take until then before she's even the Big Ten's all-time leading scorer. A couple big benchmarks to even look out for as well is that she is, I think, at like 940-something career assists, so she could hit the 1,000 assist mark sometime, probably around the same time that she hits the scoring record late in the regular season. She's at about 850 career rebounds. It would take a lot for her to get 1,000 rebounds, but it would be fun to see her get a chance to reach 4 figures on all those numbers. Sabrina Ionescu is the only player in NCAA history to hit 4 digits on each of those. She had 2,000 and something odd points, and then 1,000 rebounds and assists. So
Call that like a triple quadruple?
something to that nature. Let's not even look at how many turnovers she has because it.
I just remember having to explain to my girlfriend what a triple-double was, and I'm like, okay, so double is the number of digits, okay? And it was fun.
How many prime numbers are involved here? Yeah, Curtis was talking about the Fibonacci sequence earlier. Let's hope that doesn't come into play.
That was a mic check.
But outside of Caitlin continuing to climb the scoring chart, we had Kate Martin surpassing 1,000 career points. Kate Martin, who was once teammates with Tania Davis, who is now a coach on staff with the Hawkeyes, been around forever. Was anybody else surprised that it was only now that she hit 1,000 points? I was a little bit, but nevertheless, significant milestone for anybody who plays college basketball.
I think it goes to show you how much 1,000 points really is, and we've had a few of those, milestone markers in the past few years with, Garza and Gustafson scoring a lot of points, but she is definitely more than a scorer. She's here. She's one of the captains on the team, and she's really the glue behind this team. So,
yeah, she's honestly maybe my favorite Hawkeye to cover on this team, just because she is the most. Caitlin is so well spoken. She just knows how to give you the right soundbite that you want. But Kate, I feel like, is way more. She's so genuine. I mean, she just knows how to talk to a person and make you feel like the most important person.
Even off the record, if we're just talking to her, she's very casual, whether it's talking about classes and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. We were talking to her last year during the tournament about just travel and different cities she's had a chance to see. Just always so much fun to talk to. She'd make a great. I think she's planning on going into coaching one day, but she'd make a great politician too. Just somebody who makes you feel important and can be a leader of other human beings. I've always just loved covering Kate, and I'm excited for what comes next for her.
Kate Martin for governor.
The 42nd, I believe, member of the 1,000-point club for the Hawkeye women's team. Coming up on that list will be Gabby Marshall. She's at, I think, 900 and either 47 or 57 career points, so she'll get there probably by the end of the regular season as well. So you have 3 1,000-point scores on the same roster. And it does goes to show, especially on the men's team, we're probably not going to have a lot more 1,000-point scores just because guys who are big scorers are going to the NBA. You know, I was Keegan Murray a 1,000-point scorer at the Hawks?
I'd have to check, but he only played those 2 years, right?
Yeah, basically, 2 seasons. Chris Murray played.
The first season he was playing spot minutes, like 10 minutes a game.
So I don't know. I mean, it's hard to imagine a lot more men's players getting there when they have the chance to leave early. Women, since they do have to stick around for 4 years of college, they have a better chance to get there. But it's a credit to Kate and Gabby, the fact that they're getting to 1,000 points in spite of being on the team all these years. Like, yeah, as you say, it goes to show how tough it is. But after the game the other night, the win over Wisconsin, we heard from Coach Bluter and Kate talking about what it means to get to 1,000 points and how significant and what a big part of this roster she is for the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just super cool. You know, not everybody gets to do that, obviously, in their college career. And, yeah, it took me 5 years, but I'm still just going to run with it and be happy with it. So
No one's going to know.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people will.
I just feel like she's playing so confidently and strong right now. I love the way that Kate's playing and leading this team. You know, again, she doesn't force anything. She took 8 shots and made 5 of them, 4 for 7. She's playing to her role. She's playing to her strengths. But I think it's big when we can get extra people. I mean, everybody knows Caitlin's going to have double figures, but when we can have more than her, and tonight we had 2 others, and Sid and Kate, it just helps us play, you know.
To Lisa's credit, Kate really has been an outstanding, not just a leader and a captain, but she's been so good on the court lately. Just over her last 4 games, she's been in double figures, 16 points, 10 points, 15, 17 against Rutgers, then 13 against Minnesota, 19 against Loyola, 15 against Cleveland State. She's turned into, like, if Hannah Stolke isn't the number 2 option, it's Kate Martin. This girl is not just a captain out there. She can score.
Yeah. And she's a good shooter. She baseline jumper, she can hit it. Wing 3, she can hit it. She can drive. She has a lot of tools. And she might be the crux figure in them potentially going all the way if, for example, Caitlin Clark's in foul trouble. Can somebody create their own shot? Kate Martin might be able to.
And Gabby Marshall, we've talked about her struggles this year. It seems like, has been getting things figured out lately over her last few games. But on a night when Gabby's off, Kate's a great three-point shooter, too. She was 4 for 7 on three-pointers the other night against Wisconsin. It was 2 for 5 against Indiana, 3 for 5 against Loyola. I mean, the girl can shoot from anywhere on the court. She's tough. She can battle in there for rebounds. And that's kind of what this team is full of. You know, we've talked about her. We've talked about Sid Falter. Molly Davis had the big game recently.
Molly D.
Molly D, as Gus has dubbed her. They've got just a team full of girls who are tough battlers. You know, they don't all have the skill set of somebody like Caitlin Clark, but they just are gritty, and they're going to go out there and do what it takes to get a rebound, get an assist, get a steal.
Yeah, it was funny. I was going to say, like, even in the early season struggles, they're like 17-1 right now. They did lose. I was at the one game they lost, so I think I should probably stay away. I was covering it for the station, but
Michigan State pushed them pretty hard.
Yeah, that was so when Caitlin does have off nights, like she did against Kansas State that first go around, there wasn't a lot of people stepping up on the supporting side, but you see that now that they're in Big Ten play. We're seeing that more often, and if this team does want to make a deep run, that's going to have to happen.
That was my biggest criticism of the team after that Kansas State game was like Caitlin was not shooting well that night, and it's like they still just kept passing her the ball. They were just like waiting for her to start making shots, and it's like when she's having an off night, they don't need that. They don't need to keep her shooting, getting up 16 three-pointers in a game. They need Kate or Gabby to start making three-pointers.
Or just Caitlin Clark driving.
Yeah, that too. I mean, Caitlin, we've seen her. She does well in the paint too, so she can take it to the rack too if she needs to.
That Kansas State loss does look a lot better than it did earlier in the season. They're 17-1 too, with their only loss to Iowa, and they're ranked 7th in the country. So I think because they had a younger team, and I think at the time they might have been missing a player, but they look like they're one of those elite teams too. So
K-State and Colorado really boosted their stock this year.
Yeah, that win against Colorado in the postseason last year looks a whole lot better now after what Colorado's done this year, beating LSU to start the season, and now up to are they number 3? Are they right behind Iowa? I mean,
3rd.
Gosh, Buffs are having an incredible season. Iowa has some really nice wins to their credit. The K-State one looks more and more impressive every week. The Iowa State one looks more and more impressive every week, even though they were unranked at the time. And Iowa State just lost on the road to Texas Tech last night, but they've got to be a tournament team right now. I mean, they look awesome with this young roster that they have and a bunch of transfers coming in there.
They could mess around and win the Big 12 tournament if they get hot at the right time.
Yeah, they really could. The Virginia Tech, obviously, an elite win for them as well. So they're putting some good ones on there. Not to mention Indiana, who they just beat their brains in the other night. Here's the upcoming schedule. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the graphic up on the screen. Next 3 games for the Hawkeye women's team. At Ohio State this coming Sunday, maybe a game that will decide the fate of the Big Ten, that game in Columbus. And they're going to be at home against Nebraska for Taylor Swift Day. We're not one to start any speculation. Will Taylor Swift be there? Will she not be?
Tune in and
Travis
find out.
Kelce lose to the Buffalo Bills this week.
They got Jason Sudeikis in the building, so who's to say Taylor Swift can't be there too? And then at Northwestern after that. Northwestern, 7-11 overall this year. They typically have given Iowa some trouble in the past with the style of, what do they call the blizzard defense that they run. They're a tough team, but after Ohio State. Nebraska's going to be a tough game at home too. They've had a gritty and a tough schedule this year, and Nebraska seems to just hate Iowa and Caitlin Clark women's basketball, so that's going to be a tough one for the Hawkeyes.
And then after those 3 games, February 3rd, Maryland on the road.
A place where Caitlin Clark has never won in her career. She's never won. I think Lisa Bluter's never won at Maryland. Is that right?
Yeah, that was a fun trivia fact you said a few weeks ago that stumped us.
Yeah. They've never won on the road against Maryland.
The reverse Wisconsin.
That's true.
This game on Saturday in Columbus is on, or Sunday I should say, is at 11 a.m. and it's on NBC, another national broadcast. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. I checked yesterday and they didn't have a TV network on there. So NBC at 11 a.m.
Really?
Wait, what date?
Sunday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Premier League is not airing at 11
There's
a.m.
only a
on
few
NBC?
Premier League games this year.
That is just
Or this weekend, I mean.
Good riddance, I say.
Manchester City. Oh yeah. Mike's a Chelsea fan. I'm a Manchester City fan. Been rooting for them since I was 10. Not a bandwagon.
No one watching this cares about soccer.
Eye on the Premier League. So
Eye on the Prem.
it seems like this team, they're 18-1 right now. Best start since the 95-96 season, year they went into the Sweet 16. They keep having these games kind of like the Michigan State one where it's like they're riding and they're dancing with potentially going down against a team. I don't think that they can keep this one-loss schedule going for the rest of the year, but the question right now, as we're past the halfway point in the regular season, do you guys see this as a team that's championship caliber, that is Final Four caliber? Where do you think this team's ceiling is from what you've seen in the last couple weeks?
I mean, the second Iowa loses another game, they're going to plummet in the rankings. They are. Most people see Iowa as a one-person team, and the second that they look faltery, they're going to plummet them. And that's why they weren't a 1 seed last year, and that's why they are probably going to be very hesitant to give them a 1 seed this year. If they get the 1 seed, I can see them going to the Final Four. South Carolina would be very concerning to me. Camila Cardoso is 6'7". We saw her at the Naismith Trophy, and I'm 6'2", and I'm like, hi, Camila. Hannah Stolke is going to have a problem that day. So, and I think South Carolina got better as shooters, so I don't think they're going to just crowd the paint like they had to do last time. So South Carolina could be a very big problem.
They've definitely worked on their post play a little bit against Wisconsin. Hannah Stolke was out with what we hope is just a short-term injury. I asked Lisa Bluter about it after the game, and she said just kind of re-aggravated something in practice. And so hopefully see her back on Sunday against Ohio State. But we saw a lot more of Sharon Goodman, a lot more of Addie O'Grady, and even saw some quality minutes for A.J. Ediger against Wisconsin. And so, I think that they're maybe preparing these post players for what could be a postseason run where they're going to have to go up against some bigs, and it's going to be a
They could face LSU in the Elite Eight.
By committee situation where they're going to have to send Stolke and these 3 other girls against somebody like Camille Cardoso.
Yeah, or, Anissa Morrow, or Angel Reese, or some of the improved post players. Stanford's always going to put up a fight. Virginia Tech with Kitley. It's going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah. Where do you see this team's ceiling right now, Mike?
I think the ceiling is that, getting back to it's going to be tough. I mean, the tournament's always crapshoot, it depends on who you got. Just for reference, the bracketology has Iowa as the overall number 2 seed. So they have them right behind South Carolina. Take that for what it's worth. They update it every day. So that means they wouldn't see them unless they were playing in the national title game. But, that's halfway through the season, so a lot can change. I think it all depends on, how many games they do drop and who they drop them to.
Yeah.
So, they have 3 top 16 wins already. They play another one this week, or I guess Ohio State's 18th. Do they have a return trip to Indiana? Yes. Another game against Ohio State. Those are quality wins that they could add to their resume. Depends on how they perform in those, and hopefully they don't go on a losing streak. But I think number 1 seed is theirs for the taking if they don't lose 2 in a row. At one point in the season.
At this point last year, Iowa was 15-4 overall, worth noting. And again, they worked their way up to be a number 2 seed. I still say I had no problem with them being a 2 seed last year. I thought that they were a 6-loss team going into the tournament last year. That would have been a hell of a stretch to put them as a 1 seed with 6 losses on their resume. This year, I think that people are starting to wake up and see that, to say that they're a one-person team is not inaccurate. Everything goes through Caitlin, and if she is out, they are not making it to the Sweet 16 even, I don't think. So what? They've shown that they still have the ability to beat just about any team in the country. They've beaten some incredible teams so far. And so I think that this team could still lose 2, maybe 3 more games and still wind up as a 1 seed. Again, depending on who they lose to and how far they make it in the Big Ten tournament. Yeah,
that seems about right. It all depends on those things. Who your losses come to. When
they come.
You're not going to finish, 30-1 in the Big Ten. At least if you do, then you're a lock for a 1 seed. So it just depends on where the losses come from, because it's going to happen at least some other time before though.
Gotten such big production out of this team. Molly Davis we saw the other night, and it just seems like every night there's somebody that comes in and does something significant that's not Caitlin Clark. Obviously, the numbers are going to be there for her. It was Molly Davis against Indiana. She had those big quality minutes. Even the other night against Wisconsin, Kylie Feuerbach came in and put up 6 good points, had a huge block in there. I mentioned A.J. Ediger coming in and playing some good defensive minutes for the team.
Falter just does whatever she needs to do to impact the game. She's amazing.
Yep. And Wisconsin, even though they are kind of a middle-of-the-road Big Ten team, they've got a really good big. They're big. I forget her name. Sarah Williams, I think is her name. She's like top 5 in the country in blocks, averages 3 to 4 blocks a game. And they really got her out of sorts. She still scored, I think, she was like 19 and 14 or something like that, double-double. So she still had a great game. But it was all the Iowa bigs by committee gave her everything they could handle. So this team just gets production wherever they need it. And Lisa Bluer spoke about that the other day, what this team does on a nightly basis and gets production from all across the board.
Our bench, I really believe this is the strongest bench we've had in a long time. 38 bench points to 4. Our bench, I have so much confidence going to our bench. I really do. And right now, Hannah didn't play tonight. Right? And we're still able to win by 40 points or something like that. It's pretty impressive. So I'm very, very happy with the way our bench is performing.
We've created a culture where everyone matters. And so everybody on this team knows that they're valuable. And everybody on this team knows that, you might get an opportunity and you're going to have to step up. And I think people work really hard outside of practice time and get shots up. And when their number's called, since you know that you're valued on this team and that you matter, you're going to step up and we're going to have your back. It doesn't matter if it's the last person off the bench or whoever it is. We're excited for them to come in and we trust them.
Yeah, that's going to be this team's crux in the postseason. Is what they can get from their bench, and what they can get from some of the role players that are not Caitlin Clark or Kate Martin or Gabby Marshall.
By the way, the margin of victory, 46. So
it was what was it?
Nice little flex from Lisa there.
After a 3-point game after the first quarter, and again that shows what Caitlin Clark can do when she starts scoring, because she only had
And I took that personally.
3 points in the first quarter and then turned it on the second and third. But I think that really said a lot when Bluter said that this is the strongest bench that they've had in a while. Again, this is a team that made the championship game last year, but this is the strongest bench that they've had in a long time. And that's what's going to be helping them out once they reach the postseason, especially.
If we can go back a little bit to the Indiana game, watching that game, because Indiana, Wisconsin, good team, but they do middle of the road Big Ten. Indiana, you thought they were going to come in and give them a real test, and they won by 30 points. Yeah. It was amazing. It was prime time, I would love to see those ratings. I don't know if they're out yet to see how many people watched that or the Peacock game that was
It was
on.
like 1,029,000.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, Iowa, the women's Twitter account, I think, posted that the other day, that it's like the...
And that was during an NFL playoff game, I'm sure.
That was the one on Peacock, yeah.
Let me...
the one on Peacock. Oh.
The Chiefs-Dolphins game.
Oh, okay.
But watching them and I wonder how much plays into the fact that Indiana got their day of. I never know how much that plays into how teams perform. You know, I'd be kind of groggy after a flight, no matter how long it is, and coming in late due to the winter storm. But they just blew the doors off them and just.
I would like. I mean, yeah, I would love to see that happen again on Sunday against Ohio State. But I think that probably had something to do with all the travel issues that they had. And I give Indiana a lot of credit, like that they made that trip happen. I mean, they wanted that game to happen as badly as Iowa did, and so I was just stoked that they did everything they could to make it here for that game. I think that Iowa tweeted out that was like the third most watched women's basketball game in Fox history, something to that effect.
Wow.
So
I want to know the first two. That's what I want to know.
Could not speak to that, but yeah, so it got big numbers, and you know, I put that little highlight reel together of Gus Johnson's calls from that game, and I feel like we didn't get Gus at his 100% best just because it wasn't that good of a game. Like, you know, Iowa really turned it on, and it was not, you know, there was never like a game-changing opportunity for Gus to really break out the good stuff. But he still had some good anecdotes to share in there. And I would think plays, 4 more games on Fox this year, so we could see Gus again before the season's through. And again, you know, Bluter spoke about Hannah Stolke sitting that one out. Hopefully seeing her back on Sunday. Haven't heard one way or the other, but you'd think going up against Ohio State on the road, they would want to have Hannah back.
It's probably why she sat against Wisconsin.
Yeah, I have to think that they knew that they were going to take care of business against Wisconsin, so they could deal without Hannah for one game. But the Iowa women, they're doing it just about what we expected them to. The Iowa men, after the season started, the way that the season started, we maybe didn't see this kind of a turnout from them as we reach about the halfway point in the regular season. But these guys are on a tear lately. They're looking real good. I mean, Mike, I know that you've said in the past that the men's basketball team is about your favorite Iowa Hawkeye team, or the one that you follow the most. Are you surprised with what they've been able to do this year?
The last few weeks, yes. I thought, you know, Nebraska coming off beating the top-ranked Purdue, and the Hawkeyes have never really had, well, I guess it's better at home, but they struggle against Nebraska sometimes. But just the past month or so, I think a couple weeks ago I looked in the you know, these are predictive rankings. The net had us in at least 70 to 80s, which almost is, you know, is pretty bad. Getting out of the Power 5 rankings. But over the last few months, they've jumped up to 48 in the net, which is...
It's in the field of 68.
It is in the field of 68. And I was texting with Grant this morning, Grant Becker, their former sports director. He's nuts about college basketball. The highest net ranking that ever got a at-large big is in the 70s. So that just gives you a little... look into, if you think this team can make a run now, they'll have to get some better wins. They're 0-5 in quadrant 1 right now. They've lost all their games against good players, so you need against good teams. So you need more. You need a quality win. You need probably multiple. But you play in the Big Ten, so you can get them. But to go on a 3-game winning streak in the Big Ten, and I know they're not like the top teams, you have an opportunity to play the top team this weekend. Now, do I think that they're going to compete against Purdue? I have a hard time looking at that. Just the defensive intensity and in the inside defense, just I don't see it. But it is impressive to see them turn around after an 0-3 start.
That game has a chance to be interesting, especially with how good Owen Freeman has been playing lately. Seeing him go up against Zach Edey. Now,
they're going to target him to get him in foul trouble.
Will Zach Edey eat his lunch? Very likely, yes. However, I still think that it has a chance to get a little bit. I don't know, put Purdue fans on the edge of their seat. I just saw a stat recently that 9 of Purdue's last 10 losses have resulted in a court storming. Does that make sense? And so there would be a chance for another one on Saturday if that were, Saturday if that happens. But
well, I mean, how many students are actually going to be in there? And I can make that joke because during Todd Lick letters last year, I went to almost every game as a student, and I was there when Fran we had his welcome party at Carver Hawkeye Arena, so I can make fun of, because we used to go to and sit in the student section. There'd be like 20 people. I mean, there's less people. This past week, few games, I get it. School was out for winter break. Now the kids are back. Hopefully, we get a student section.
Where is the student section supposed to be?
It's behind, where the band sits. It's like to
Okay.
the left. I think they made it to the left and the right, those two sections over there.
All right.
When I was in college, it was just to the left and above them.
This is why renovations are going to be in order.
It's just amazing to think about where this team was at, though, in mid-December when they got doused by Purdue at the beginning of December. They got just totally wrecked by Iowa State. Didn't even look competitive in that game.
You were saying that, like, is Fran going to break the record this season? You had very dire
That Michigan
looks.
game was way worse than the score indicated. I was there. I went as a fan, and they scored a lot of points in the last few minutes to get it back to
looked
10.
very dire.
I really was like, yeah, how many more games can this team win this year if that's how they're going to look this year? But boy, they have turned this season around on a dime. They've won 6 of their last 7 games overall. Only loss in there is to number 21 Wisconsin. Again, you got to start picking up a few more quality wins if you want to get a shot at the tournament. But
Owen
they've got a chance
Freeman
to
has done
do something on
so much in order to get the stability that the starting lineup needed. Right now, I think they have 4 of their 5 starters locked in, and there's just that extra starter. Ty Perkins, Peyton Sanford. Why do I keep messing up everybody's name by like a letter? This is so annoying.
Anyway.
But yeah, Tony Perkins, you also have Peyton Sanford, you have Ben Krikke, and you have Owen Freeman. That other guard/wing spot, depending on how they want to play. We've seen Josh Dix starting there recently. Bowen has gotten in.
I believe Dix only started because Pat was sick one game.
That's true.
That's
And
true.
Dix has looked good.
He has looked good, yeah.
He's come on nicely. So here's the road ahead for the rest of the month of January for the Iowa men. They've got number 2 Purdue on Saturday. After that, Maryland, and then a couple of road games, Michigan and Indiana. Would any of these be quad 1 wins? Would Indiana be a quad 1 win?
Indiana would. On the road, it's different. It's 1 through 75. Michigan is teetering around the 80s, so I think that'd be a quad 2 win. Purdue would definitely be one, and Maryland probably not.
So who's ranked in the Big Ten right now? Michigan's ranked number 1, of course.
Michigan's not number 1. They're on top of the Big Ten.
I was looking at the football rankings.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, wait, are they really number 1 in both football and men's basketball? Okay, here we go.
You would have heard about it. If they were.
I saw Penn State in there. I'm
Dave
like,
Portnoy would have been in
surely-
your inbox.
Surely Penn State basketball is not really ranked number 15. Okay, who do we got? Purdue's number 2. Wisconsin's number 11 right now. Illinois is 14th. A pop-up is blocking the rest of my screen right now. Here we go.
This is why you get the Yahoo Sports.
Yeah, Illinois is 14th. And is that those are the only other Big Ten teams that are ranked right now. So there are some opportunities there for some good wins, but Fran McCaffrey claims that the Big Ten is the best conference in the country. Some Big 12 fans are probably going to argue that pretty strongly with good reason, but what can you say about that? I'm curious to get, again, a reaction from Mike here, who's the biggest Hawkeye fan in the building maybe. Now that Fran McCaffrey has the most wins in Hawkeye history, surpassing Tom Davis, do you see him as the best coach in Hawkeye history?
In my lifetime since I've been watching, I mean, I have to say yes, because I was too young to truly watch Tom Davis. One of my memories was my dad getting me out of school to watch, I think, a UConn game, and it was one of Tom's last years, and or that might have been Steve Alford's first year, actually. And then watching Steve Alford and then Todd Licklider. When you look at it, I mean, historically, I think you got to go Tom Davis just because he took the team to an Elite Eight. I mean, you could even say in such a short stint that if basketball coach-wise, Lute Olson, he coached here for a few years, and before he went to Arizona and made his dynasty. So if you're going to go straight, who is the point-blank best coach, you have to say Lute Olson. But his stay at Iowa wasn't that very long, so can you say he's the most storied coach? Obviously not. But I think it's between Davis and him for that, and I think I'd lean Davis just because of the tournament success.
Yeah.
Later on, Davis had trouble getting to the second weekend too, so
Yeah.
it's not just a Fran thing, but at the same time, he did take those teams to a couple second weekends, so you have to give him that credit.
Yeah.
We've gotten to know Tom Davis a little bit better, especially a few months back.
Had a chance to talk to him last year. Still kicking around Iowa City and having a good time. I'd love to see him at the game on Saturday. I have to imagine he'd maybe be there to kind of pass along that game ball to Coach Fran. Obviously, they've had some, I don't know where Bucky O'Connor lands on your all-time list of Iowa coaches. He's the guy who took them to the Final Four and a runner-up status in the mid-'50s. George Raveling maybe doesn't get enough credit as he should for being a great coach for Iowa. A lot of people say that some of those early tournament teams that Tom had, that those were some of George's recruits that helped him in that time. And so he's a basketball Hall of Famer right now based on what he did at USC. He did a lot of great things and could go down as one of the better coaches that Iowa's had too. Do we see this team right now? I mean, what do we think of their postseason prospects? I mean, where do you see them finishing in the Big Ten tournament? How far do they make it? And where do you see them as a NCAA tournament team, NIT team? Where do you see them finishing the year?
This past few weeks made me think that they could get there. They're not there yet. They need quality wins. They can get them in the Big Ten. They have to put together a better resume than they have, and they have to play better each and every night. Easy to say. Like the game against Michigan that they lost, they cannot put a performance like that, especially at home. I think it's doable to make the tournament. I think their ceiling is like an 8 or 9 seed. Will it happen? I'm not sure. I think they probably make the NIT if they don't. So I think that is what we can look forward to.
I could see them being a first 4 team. And
Yeah.
maybe the Kumbayas, they win that first 4 game and then lose in the first round.
Yeah.
I can't see them making, at most, they are not getting out of the first weekend.
It would be a very Iowa thing to have this be the team that makes like an Elite 8 run or something. It's like the team that like has probably the least expectations around it over the last like 8 years is the one that actually goes to the Sweet 16. They're 11-6 right now. I think if this team wins 9 more games, they're into the tournament. If they're a 20-win team, I feel like they make the tournament. Like you say, probably as like 10 seed, something like that. First 4 actually is probably a good call. I think that they would sit around there. But based on what they've done lately, I mean, and again, playing against a Big Ten that, like, yes, is good, and there's a lot of quality wins out there, but this is not like a team that's going to have a ranked opponent every single night. Like
That's true. This is I was saying, against the Big Ten schedule, this is a weaker Big Ten than we've seen. The Maryland game is a quad 3 game. That's like stuff you don't usually see. I think
Ohio State's a little weaker this year.
Yeah. All of the Big 12 teams, I think, are quad 1 wins. Like they're crazy how good the Big 12 is this year. The Big 10's a little down, but you have to capitalize on some of the better teams. So you look when you play Wisconsin next, Purdue and Michigan State are the teams you want to look for.
We're going to get a chance to celebrate Coach Fran on Saturday, getting that record-breaking win when they face off against number 2 Purdue. And Fran, I think, did you have a soundbite pulled up from Twitter? Yeah, hearing from Coach Fran from what he said after getting that record break.
I don't know if you've seen this. This is, I think Steve Bardo interviewed him right after, and he got super emotional. So I thought it would have been cool just to play this real quick.
And I want to say congratulations to you becoming the all-time winningest coach in Iowa history. What does that mean to you, Coach?
It means a lot, Steve. To be compared to Tom Davis, I came here 14 years ago. Never thought this would happen. Thank you.
Well, it couldn't happen to a better coach. Congratulations to you.
Short and bittersweet.
You ever see Fran get emotional? I don't know if I've seen Kirk Ferentz get more emotional.
I mean,
a
I've
lot
seen
more
him
often
get
than Fran.
emotionally angry.
I've seen emotions out of
I'm
the
trying to
man.
think if he did when Patrick was, dealing with his cancer battle, like publicly. I can't remember exactly, but maybe that was probably the only time, but not in like a post-game interview like this. He gets a lot of flack for being angry, but when you talk to him afterwards, if it's not like a devastating or you tossed or whatever, he's usually pretty level-headed and he calms down. It must just be like game focus. I'm going to, that stuff against Michigan State when he stared down the ref was...
I can relate to that.
Yeah. But that's just a pretty cool moment. I'm glad Fran. I'm happy for him. And like I said, I was there when he got introduced to the Iowa fans, so I feel a connection towards him, and he's always been, I thought, a good coach.
Mitch Fick tells a story, too, about just him coming here and being able to turn that program around from what it was under Todd Licklider. I mean, those were maybe some of the use the term, the darkest days in Iowa history. In terms of wins and quality of those teams, probably some of the darkest days in Iowa history under Todd Licklider. I mean, those teams were just awful.
They were, yeah. The depth on those teams, they had 6 players who could play. Their backup, and I mean, John Licklider was the backup point guard, and he was a good high school player.
Yeah.
I don't think he was a Big Ten player.
Little Lick, as he's been dubbed. Yeah, so for him, I think that I've heard legends about that first NIT tournament that they made that just felt like such a huge win for them to be playing in postseason again.
They were even a 7 seed in the NIT. This was my senior year, and they hosted a game because they were playing Dayton, and Dayton had the first 4. So they were hosting the 2 seed. Carver was freaking packed. It was like as loud as a wrestling duel in there, and because it wasn't just the older basketball season ticket holders, it was just first come first serve. And it was a wild crowd. Iowa ended up winning the first game, then losing to Oregon, I think, in the second game. But it was pretty cool scene. And could you imagine someone, even if Iowa hosted an NIT game as a top seed, I don't think Carver gets half full. It's just different perspectives when you're coming off the Todd Licklider era, where there wasn't much to celebrate. When you finally got, and it was Matt Gaten's senior season, a postseason bid, it was just pretty cool around that time.
Yeah. Fran maybe... Yeah, he takes a lot of flack for not getting this team past the second round of the tournament, but it's still great to see him take his place in Hawkeye history. I love Dr. Tom. I love Lute. I love George Raveling. They've just had a lot of great guys come to this program. I'm gonna maybe upset some Hawkeye fans by saying I love Steve Alford. He coached some great teams.
You're muted.
I mean, he's taken some strange paths in his journey. But
so the funny thing is,
there.
Me and my friends usually take the tournament off, and one of our favorite things to do every year is to root against whatever team Steve Alford's are rooting for. Whoever he's coaching Nevada still, right? Whoever Nevada, or back when he coached UCLA, we'd be huge opposite team of that in their bracket.
I think I have a soft spot for Steve. He's like, again, my brother-in-law's family has obviously a lot of ties to the university, and they're very close to the Alfords, and so I hear mostly positive things about him from them. But I know Hawkeye fans don't have a lot of love lost for Coach Alford in those days. I think that was just when I was rooting for Iowa back in the early 2000s, when it was Eric Hansen and Jeff Horner and Adam
Greg
Molesky,
Bruner.
those guys. Good times. What's that?
Greg Bruner and it's a Jeff Horner and Sean Sonderleiter. I can go Glenn Worley, all those good players.
There's some fun teams back there in the early 2000s under Alford. The bird is making...
The bird woke up.
The bird's all around here now. But still a lot of fun things to celebrate this year, and it would be fun for however long Fran has left at the University of Iowa to see them make a deep postseason run again this year. We're hopefully getting back in the habit of Eye on the Hawks, hopefully doing these every Thursday. We're going to be doing these live on YouTube Thursday at 1 o'clock. You can follow us on all of our social media accounts to see if there's any updates on times that we're going to be doing these things. We'll push out any alerts with the men's or women's basketball teams. Follow us on X, on YouTube, on Instagram, and of course Iowa's News Now on all the social media pages as well. Got a lot of big games coming up. Purdue game on Saturday. Possible upset potential. Could be another Stork-Corming situation at Carver Hawkeye Arena. And then
Stork-Corming situation?
What'd I say?
You said Stork-Corming.
Stork-Corming, yeah. Once upon a whime. I think that's called spoonerism when you mix those up. But possible court storming situation for the Hawkeyes. And then we'll see what the rest of the Big Ten schedule has to offer. But for the time being, we will see you next Thursday here on Eye on the Hawks. Thanks for joining us this week.